Hello and welcome to another review. This one is for the new Storm Revenant. Angel and I are in this one, so righty and a lefty, we're on a challenge pattern and we go through several different surfaces, so you'll want to stick around because as always, this will be the best review you'll see or your money back. The Revenant is a straight up remake of the Spectre with different colors and a different scent. R3S Pearl cover at the shiny Reactogloss finish, and the symmetric Vector core at a 254 RG and an 050 differential. In the short time the Spectre was with us, it established itself as an exceptionally effective ball in the middle of the bag under something like a Zen or a Phase 2. It was incredibly versatile and controllable, and people have been clamoring for a re-release, which will finally be here on January 20th, releasing with the Absolute. R3S Pearl is halfway in between R2S that's on the Phase 5 and the S77 response cover on the Zen, but the Vector core is very similar to the core in the Wolverine. Much higher RG, making the Revenant more of a slightly stronger Wolverine Dark Moss or stronger High Road Pearl. Starting with Angel first, we've decided to make Hagel Chromium our testing pattern going forward. The problem with filming on a house shot is that despite it being what most people will bowl on, they tend to make everything look the same, so it's very hard to see the ball-to-ball differences. On the flip side, filming on our tough sport pattern tends to make everything look worse than it actually is, and some balls just aren't designed for use on the fresh on a heavier volume sport pattern. So filming on a house shot seems kind of pointless, and filming on a sport pattern seems kind of unfair. So Hagel Chromium at 42 feet, 25.5 mils, and a close to 7-to-1 ratio seems like the perfect pattern. High side of medium length and volume, and while the ratio keeps you honest, it's not unfair and is quite playable if you make decent shots. First of all, we've already determined after going a few rounds with Reactogloss on a couple of other balls that it's just not for us, so while I'll still at least start with the box surface later to take a quick look, Angel has opted to go straight to using Reactoscuff on the balls before drilling. This takes them to a 3000-ish grit sheen that breaks the polish without getting the surface too dull. With Reactogloss, the balls tend to start off very jerky and inconsistent out of the box, then after a few shots, the cover gets slick and almost slimy like a house ball, very hard to get clean even though we do wipe everything off thoroughly with a Premier Chamois in between shots, and this causes the balls to begin to skate and deflect. Now, I'm not going to blow smoke up your hee-haw or try to sugarcoat it, it doesn't look that great. It hung out for a handful of shots, but did the opposite of what the Absolute did for her. It looked rough for the first 8 to 10 shots and then woke up. This one looked serviceable for the first 8 to 10 shots and then just slimed up and stopped hooking. One could argue that the fresh on this pattern is too much for this ball, but it started out fine, and mine hangs out just fine as we'll see later. Angel has also used weaker stuff on this pattern in this center to solid success in tournaments, so there's no reason to believe that the Revenant shouldn't be doing at least more than it is. This same cover was on the original Intense, the hybrid version on the Intense Fire in Phase 3, so it's definitely plenty of cover, and while the core is medium to high RG, 050 on the diff helps it flare plenty enough to really engage and make use of the cover strength, but it's just not having it. We just don't think that the Reactoscuff gets deep enough. Like I mentioned in the Absolute review, the old 1500 grit polish finish, the process was 500, 1000, step 2, which is a lower grit compound. The Reactogloss finish process is 500, 2000, 4000 gloss, so much finer, smoother surface before using a much higher grit polish than step 2 in the Reactogloss on it, so the overall surface with Reactogloss ends up much smoother and weaker than the old 1500 grit polish. Reactoscuff used to be great for knocking the shine down with the old polish, but it's hit or miss on working on the gloss balls. It worked on the Fate, didn't work on the Revenant here obviously, and is average on the Absolute. Like we did with the Absolute, I took it down to 1000 with Jayhawk Bowling Supply's Diamond Dust pads, and then finished it with Reactoscuff. This results in a surface that's rougher overall than it was to begin with, because rather than coming down from the finer polish surface, we're going up from 1000, so a bit more strength to help with traction and stability, but the bigger goal was to hopefully open the pores of the ball up so it would absorb some oil and get rid of the slick or slimy feeling, so it'd pick up and drive and be more consistent instead of kind of walking up or slowly or lazily easing or backing up into the pocket or just flat out doing nothing. We made sure to get the same lane again for consistency's sake, and while the difference isn't to the degree that it was with the Absolute, it is noticeable. Little more traction, she's also starting out a bit straighter, not trying to make it do too much. I'd say it's more stable, but it's hard to be more stable than it was before. It's a bit iffy at first, but as she gets some shots on it and gets the surface broken in a little, it gradually wakes up and starts moving. For her, it's not a specter Spectre, unfortunately, this one, even with rebuilding the surface, is a fair amount smoother and weaker. However, the good news is that her Fate has become her Spectre replacement, so we're going to look at that for a comparison. I'll feature the Spectre as a comparison myself later in the video. Like the first footage of the Revenant, Angel used React to Scuff on her Fate from the React to Gloss surface to knock the shine off and make it more consistent. The Fate does have a stronger cover and marginally stronger core than the Revenant, but you can see that it has no problem getting traction and driving. For both of us, the Fate has ended up so close to the Spectre that we were content if we didn't get a replacement. It's even a bit stronger than the Spectre and possibly more controllable, while every bit is versatile, so it might be, dare I say it, an improvement of the Spectre. I'm not sure the ball reaction gets better than this. She's got plenty of forgiveness on misses left and right. It blends enough, but is also punchy and firm on the back end. It's got flashes of stuff like the Marvel Pearl and Idle Pearl, while bumping the strength up a bit to play on the fresh on patterns like this. I'm going to be preaching about this ball indefinitely, so go get your robe on. I'll start passing out the Kool-Aid in a minute. Remember, this is a 7-to-1 challenge pattern. This isn't the house shot. Now, to be fair, challenge patterns are easier than some house shots, but not here. This is just one of the best balls out there right now. Sorry, and all hail Belmo, Lord of the Two Hands. Flipping sides, my Revenant at the out-of-box surface is a quite different experience. This thing books. I had no trouble getting it to hook, but like the Absolute did for me, the cover got slick, and while it didn't create significant traction issues, it just made it a little wiggly and inconsistent. Realistically, that was fixed by just dropping my speed a little and rolling it more. It's not like a factory polished ball being wiggly and inconsistent is anything new. The oil staying on the cover and not getting absorbed into the ball is new, however, and is an issue. Once again, like I mentioned in the Absolute review, I'm using a Premier chamois that has no trouble sucking the oil off anything else, polished or not, but the React to Gloss balls for us just act like urethane or house balls. They get slick and the oil just will not absorb into the ball like it's supposed to. However, it didn't get as slimy as the Absolute, and the ball reaction still looks mostly good. It's still hooking plenty, it's still shaping strong and driving down lane, it's just consistently getting behind the headpin and wrapping 7s, but that could be the 254 RG too. Shiny ball, medium high RG, left side of the lane, 42 foot, 25.5 mil pattern. This isn't unreasonable reaction for all those factors by any means. I'm not trying to be nitpicky, I'm just covering all the bases. I do like this ball quite a bit. This is exactly the type of reaction I like. Decent length, lets me catch it at the bottom, very round shaping and continuous, medium strength, right in my wheelhouse. Again, however, like I mentioned in the Absolute review, you can always tweak and improve ball reaction, so I decided to hit it with a 3000 pad to blend it out a little, maybe make it start up a little earlier and erase some of those wrap 7s and increase the stability. Now, instead of wrapping them now, I started kicking them. Another one of those small but effective differences. If you go turkey, wrap 7, spare, turkey, when you could have just gone 7-bagger, that's realistically a huge difference. That's 21 pins on that game. I did finish here by straightening back out, and it looks fine. However, still bothered by the slick or slimy feeling, I decided to also resurface this one because it definitely wasn't going to hurt. Now, like I did with my Absolute, I took it down to 1000 with Jayhawk Bowling Supply's Diamond Dust pads and then finished it with Step 2 compound. Holy words I can't say on YouTube. I mean, I guess I can say them, but I need the ad revenue. The ball gets somewhat stronger, of course, and while it retains the general shape and attributes from before, stability goes up, versatility goes up, consistency goes up, the ball reaction just straight up improves across the board. It's firmer, visibly more readable, it hits harder, it gives me more confidence in executing and staying aggressive with it rather than just trying to slow roll it or finesse it to carry the corners. I felt like James after the resurface. I was just absolutely sending the ball and annihilating it at the bottom, and it was throwing pins everywhere. I try to be technical and analytical and objective, but sometimes it's okay for bowling to be fun. The ball reaction's obviously great. I've been rambling about it for almost 10 minutes already. You get the point. And this was just fun to film, and it's fun to watch. Again, like I touched on in the Absolute review, when it comes to the surface, React to Gloss might be great for you if you bowl on higher friction lanes or drier conditions, so just because it doesn't work for us doesn't mean it won't work for you. However, if you happen to have the same issues we are, this is how to adjust. Thousands of people buy every release, and it's normal for some to not match up or not get along with something, but there's so many adjustments you can make that it'd be dumb to spend a couple $100 on a ball and bail on it because it's not perfect out of the box. Even when it's just average or mediocre like the Absolute was for Angel at first, you can dial it in and make it better. It showed plenty of promise to begin with, so we just took it another step and now it's incredible. Box surface is just a suggestion. There's no way that they can make every ball work for every bowler on every condition, and if you're one of these I shouldn't have to change anything or I don't like changing the box surface people, you're just going to waste a lot of money and be miserable. Now we enter the Spectre, still at the 1500 grit polished box surface, or kind of. I put quite a few games on it in the short time I could because it was incredible. This is fun to watch too, and was more fun to film than anyone should be allowed to have. The Revenant with any of the surfaces is longer and sharper than the Spectre, and the easiest way for me to explain the comparison is that the Revenant to the Spectre is the High Road Pearl to the High Road. The Spectre is more of a blendy arc like the High Road. The Revenant is longer and sharper, but also that really round shape like the High Road Pearl. Revenant creates more shape, but Spectre feels like it hooks a bit more or has a bit more overall traction. Like I mentioned when we were watching Angel with the Fate, I really feel like the Fate is a closer replacement to the Spectre as an overall package than the Revenant is, even though my Revenant, for whatever reason, performed much better than hers did. The strength of the Revenant is closer to the Spectre. The Fate is stronger, but the shape and reaction characteristics of the Fate are more similar to the Spectre. So in a weird twist, the Revenant is more of a High Road Pearl look that I can throw. I like the High Road Pearl, but it's just too weak to ever see any use, so the Revenant gives me that shape and a strength that will actually see lane time, and the Fate is the truer Spectre replacement in my opinion. The Revenant releases on January 20th with the Absolute. Look for that review as well. I'll also have plenty of comparisons coming soon. Please drop your requests down in the comments section if there's anything specific you'd like to see it compared to. Remember my Bowler's Mart link in the description below to get one of these pre-ordered. Rosdahl 10 gets you 10% off at checkout at CoolWick.com. Check out my YouTube memberships for plenty of early access and exclusive content. Thanks to my outstanding members. Thank you for watching, and may the strikes be with you.